I think this thing is working. Hopefully, we've got enough bandwidth to make a live show work. What is happening to everybody? All right, so doing a little bit difficult around my journey. And oh, by the way, we're going to try to keep this one down to about an hour because these 2-hour shows have been killing me. So I'm going to bring it back down to about an hour on this one. So Dr. Div's checking in, Mopar fam's checking in. What's up, y'all? So anyway, here's part of the thing. You guys know that I've been looking for a car for the channel. We're looking for a Duster initially. That moved into, it was like a B-body Mopar, and then it was a D100, D150 pickup. At any rate, if you've been watching the show for any length of time, you know that I've been looking for something like that. And my, hold on a second. Let me do this real quick. Mopar Fan 300. What's my Instagram again? It is not. I'm not giving my Instagram out anymore because people basically wreck that for everybody else. In fact, anybody that's hitting me up on Instagram, don't look forward for a response because, like I say, we've had some people that have abused that a little bit and, basically hitting me up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, my phone going off, waking me up. So way too many questions, people trying to rush answers and stuff like that. So yeah, no more Instagram on my deal. Mike Corleone's checking in with the arm flex. I like it. But anyway, let me get to the topic I wanted to talk about. So the funny thing is that a lot of the cars that I was looking for, the issue was I wanted to find something that I either had a personal connection to, either a car that I had, a friend of mine had, or a variation of that type of vehicle. And so again, looking at Dusters, B-body Mopars, the fact there was a Satellite that I liked a lot, the trucks, everything else. And one of the things that I discovered through the course of this was just how difficult it is to find basically a platform or a car to get started with. But even more to the point, and probably even more disheartening, was the cost of these things. It's funny that basically the cost just to get into the club initially for something that is even remotely workable is, I don't know, somewhere around $6,000. Like something that is mechanically serviceable, a running, driving contraption at this point is all I was really even looking for. Something with a solid body that would at least start and move under its own power, that type of idea. Yeah, $6,000 to $7,000 for something. And even then, it was a crapshoot at whether or not that thing was going to be even worth my time. There's some kind of deal breakers with me on the project that I was looking for. One, I didn't want to put something together that was unrelatable. Yeah, I get it. The Hellcat, it's fun watching it go down the track, running 10-second quarter miles, but the reality is that, it's not that relatable of a car to everybody. It looks great on YouTube, but the reality is that I wanted to build something that I can kind of have some kind of a nostalgic tug to. Something like an older, like I said, a Duster, it's something like a B-body or a truck, something that when I was growing up, people had, or that I had driven, or that I owned. Well, the cost of doing business is just far too high with those types of cars. And it became more and more disheartening the more and more I went and looked at them. The conversation at one time had even turned into like disco era Camaros. And if you've ever priced, one of the disco era Camaros right now, it is absolutely laughable what people are asking for these cars that are in basically junkyard condition with a rebuilt engine. Sidebar on that, everything has a rebuilt engine, right, that you're looking up for sale. That means none of them did, and I don't even look at that. In fact, I call that out pretty quickly. If it says rebuilt anything, I'll run for the hills. But the funny thing about it is that the cost was so high on cars that were just plain junk. And I got to thinking about it for a minute. The only way I could actually afford to do a build would literally would be to have one, like if I already owned the vehicle. I would have to have it gifted, like an uncle decided, hey, you can have this thing, or like if somebody had just more or less I had inherited something. Like this is kind of like an ongoing theme with a lot of guys. Like, man, my uncle gave me this truck, or my granddad left me this truck, something like that. In that case, then it makes sense to start diving into that hot rod. But man, I got to tell you, if you've got to buy the donor car itself, it almost makes it not worth the hassle. Mainly because you don't have any semblance of history with that vehicle. And I can't tell you how many shoddy patch jobs and just sketchy shit that I started running into with these vehicles that, oh, it's been, I'm the second owner or the third owner, it's been taken care of, whatever. You get out there to take a look at this thing and it is a complete disaster flick. And you just kind of wonder who in the hell actually sends this thing out into the world for public consumption with what expectation that somebody is going to go out there and look at it and go, oh yeah, I agree with your assessment. No, it can't be. I mean, this person has got to be either as dim-witted as they come or as deceitful as you can possibly be when you're dealing with a vehicle that on initial sight is basically a piece of junk that may or may not even run. So, the more I started looking at it, the more it basically dawned on me, I cannot afford to be nostalgic. I cannot afford to put a project together just based on the garbage that I've been seeing and what the price was that they wanted for those vehicles. Man, there is no way in hell I could get on board with that. So anyway, the search does still continue, but I don't know. We'll get into some pricing and some other things. Let's take a break from my, crying in my Topo Chico over here. Say what's up to everybody. Mopar fam saying sorry about what happened. Yeah, it was just, it was cool for a while, and then some folks got a little too shitty on my Instagram, so no moss on that deal. Let's see. The best gamer saying, what's your opinion of a 2005 Chrysler 300 with the 3.5 V6? I don't have an opinion on that vehicle. I would not get one unless, again, it's a vehicle that you can get super cheap and you're just going to use it for general transportation appliance. If it doesn't make any weird ticks or rattles, I'd say go ahead and pick it up. Just see if you can get one with a service history. That's going to be the most important part on that engine. Slash saying, good to catch a chat. Good to see you in here. Floyd saying, what's up, Mr. B? Good to catch you live. What's up, Floyd? Mopar fam saying, did you see RT Life's latest YouTube video on a 2007 Dodge Charger SRT8 Hellcat swap in the burgundy color? No, I haven't seen that. I've had my nose kind of in the dirt here lately. I haven't had a chance to catch up with anybody just yet. Dark Div saying, the trucks are hard to find that aren't rusted out. Man, they're hard to find, period. But yeah, the ones that have been taken care of are unicorns at this point, and people are asking ridiculous. For the ones that are busted and rusted, those are the ones that people seem to think they hit, like a pick 3 on that deal. I don't understand it. I really don't. Whatever happened to, look, you've got this thing in your yard, man, just let it go. But that used to, anyway, when I was a kid, there was like, oh yeah, $2,000, you can have it. Or $1,500, you can have it. Guys, I tell you what it is. Here's what I honestly think that it is. It shows like Roadkill, it shows like, or whatever shows are out there like that. All the car shows where you see somebody take some box of shit and turn it into something cool. That's kind of driven up the price. I mean, a lot of these people are car enthusiasts, or they're YouTube fans of some of these shows or some of the YouTube shows. A lot of it's Motor Trend on Demand. You'll see this stuff on there, where somebody just takes this heap of crap and throws a heap of money at it, and out the other side of the mill comes this pretty cool vehicle, or it's something that is already and you throw an engine at it, throw some shit that you've happen to have laying around the shop after 20 years of being in the business, and you basically spend about a week and a half with the thing to 2 weeks, and then you discard it, you dispose of it. Well, people think that those things, once they're built, are just these tanks that seem to last forever, and then romanticize the whole idea of breaking down on the side of the road. It sounds pretty freaking annoying and borderline insane to me, but hey, whatever blows your hair back, it's entertaining if nothing else. But a lot of that has driven the pricing of some of these vehicles up, which you used to never ever see values like this. I mean, 3, 4, 5 years ago, the values of the stuff that I'm looking at right now was about, I'd say about 60% of what it is now. So anyway, let's see, where was I? Oh, so, okay, your Mopar fam say, I'm not sure if it's even possible to put an 8-speed auto in a 2005, 2010 LX. Wouldn't even bother with it, man. You'd be better off saving your money, trading that thing in on something that already has an 8-speed. Dr. Dude's saying people want something for nothing all the time, and if it's an old car, they want much for it, or they want too much for it, or it's junk. Yeah, not only do they want too much for it, but it's funny, you look at it and you say, okay, well, look, there's a lot that's wrong with this vehicle. I mean, I can see paying, this is kind of just a rehash of a conversation, or the way a conversation typically goes. Look, man, I see what you're asking for it. I mean, the mentality is you got to start high, right? But I'm only calling these folks because they're offering this stuff up for sale. I'm not trying to lowball anybody. In fact, when I'm making an offer on some of the cars that I've looked at, or when I would have made an offer, I should say, I'm everything I can to try to protect their interest as well and not offend them in the process. So it's easier for me to just not even give an offer and just say, thanks for your time, it's not for me, and we'll catch up with you later on down the line, and away you go. Because it's I don't know, it's kind of sad these folks have this, that in some cases sentimental value, because in some cases these vehicles may have belonged to a family member who's now either not with us anymore, or just gave the car to the kid and said, sell it, here's some cash. So there may be some sentimental value, but I don't have any value in their sentiment at all. And I sometimes hate to break the bubble, but man, some of the pricing is just absolutely, it's stupid and it's embarrassing, really. Sean's checking in saying, good evening, Mr. Mason, get ready for some pulley questions if that's not off topic tonight. Yeah, go ahead and shoot him, man. Let's see. Dr. Diff, or a long bed, which isn't my taste. Man, I was even starting to consider long beds because the short beds were getting way too difficult to find. I don't mind a long bed, but I was kind of leaning towards like a 70, 71, 72 3/4 ton, which I thought would be a whole lot of fun. Let's see. Oh, Mopar fam saying SMPI, yeah, sequential port, multi-fuel injection. There you go. Shawnee's asking, what's the oldest carbureted vehicle you owned that you kind of wish you had back? The oldest one that I've owned that I would actually want back was my 86 Chevy pickup, which is one of the vehicles that I was looking for. It was an 86 Chevy 4x4. I have been looking for an 86, and it has to be an 86 because it's carbureted with the 700 R4. Been looking for an 86 short bed, and if I found a nice one, I'd be in. But God, there's define nice in this case. It's pretty difficult to do because one person's definition is clearly different than what others are. Mopar fam saying that's what the 6.1 Hemis are. Yeah, it is. Let's see. Slash is saying that he has seen a Challenger Scat Pack on YouTube. Just take his passenger and back seat out and have drag radials doing 11.6. Do you think that's legit? And on drag radials with a lot of weight reduction, probably. So yeah, I mean, it's legit-ish. It depends on the DA. We're at a point in time during the year where DAs in certain parts of the country are very low. So, I mean, I ran 11.6. I ran as quick as 11.3 with my full weight SRT 392. So, and that's just with a tune, cat delete, and Hellcat airbox with a Hellcat filter. And it had one of my ported intakes on it, but it did not have that ported intake on it when it ran that number. It just had a bit of a cleanup on it with a bigger throttle body, but I ran the number with the stock throttle body. Shawnee's saying, maybe I missed it. Are you looking for an older carbureted muscle car? Yes, I am, as a matter of fact. Onyx is saying, every time everyone thinks that their barn find is a 70 Hemi Cuda 4-speed convertible. Guy in North Carolina has a Warlock and it is crap and wants 10 grand. That's my freaking point. Okay, so Warlocks, people think that's some kind of a special deal. It's basically a little red truck, but a little bit revamped, but same idea. But you know, the D1, it's a truck, okay? But the problem is that somehow or another, people have lost their mind and have gotten into their head that these things are overwhelmingly valuable. And I'm not understanding that at this juncture. Not to mention the fact, let's be real, this is Texas, okay? I can go online and find a ton of these trucks for sale. The problem is that every single one of them, unless it is a completely clapped out piece of crap shell sitting in somebody's backyard, buried up to its frame in the dirt, those trucks, well, let's talk about that one for a minute. The garbage is going for like $3,500 to $4,000. Serviceable, workable trucks that are probably in need of an engine rebuild, maybe a trans rebuild, but in all, more or less a decent machine in that. It is not aesthetically good. I mean, it's aesthetically fair, but mechanically it's a serviceable thing. Yeah, that's $6,500 to $7,000 asking price. I'm not saying they're going to get it. I'm just talking about the asking price. From there, trucks that have had somebody going through them, working on them, maybe a little bit of work, what have you. From there, the price can kind of trickle up to, you know, pick your number. But the reality is that a decent, nice project truck, you're not going to get for, and this is for the boxy stuff. I'm not even talking about the 60s and 70s trucks. Anyway, too much money to even worry about anymore. And in fact, the way that I've seen it at this point, I'm basically over the concept. I hate to break that, or break it that way, but the issue is that the cost of the vehicle is so high. And by the way, you're basically at that point, you're buying a shell. The case is that, you know, unless it's got spindles replaced, perches replaced, body mounts replaced, all the stuff that comes with that truck to be replaced, that's all stuff you've got to replace. And that's cool. That was going to be part of what I was going to do for the channel. But that's assuming I could pick something up for, say, $3 grand. You know, basically somebody's just like, look, get this thing off my yard. I'm not going to try to gouge you. I know what it is. I know what I could get, but just get the thing out of here and, you know, basically sending it off to a good home. These guys are basically taking the sentimental value that they have, trying to cash it in, and they don't really care what happens to their vehicle. So anyway, again, it's unless something just falls out of the clear blue sky, it's not going to be me messing with one of these things anytime soon. That's for sure. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, that's right, you want to get yourself a Power Wagon, right? No, nothing four-wheel drive. I want something that, basically something that I can take on road trips. That's why I want overdrive transmission, something that came from the factory with an overdrive is even better. That's why I was looking at the 86 trucks. But four-wheel drive, something I can put a nice stance on, drop it, build, you know, for a Chevrolet, I'd build a nice little 383 with about 10.5 to 1 compression. One of my cams, RPM 2 with a 750 Holley, a set of AFR heads, 450 horse 383, something that just a lot of fun, good street engine, pump gas engine that lights the tires up through 3 gears. That's basically what I was going to do. The combination on the truck, well, that's the engine, built 700 R4, Corvette valve body, set of 373 or 390 gears, and on a 28 or a 29 inch tall tire. So that was basically the combination right there. And again, that combination would, I mean, it'd be a high 12-second truck that would just be a riot to drive. See, Dr. Dude saying 86 Chevy pickup. My buddy TJ has an 85 square body for sale. It's nice considering its age. Bet he let it go cheap, no rust at all, but needs an engine. Not Mopar, but nice truck. Drop a Hemi in. I wouldn't do that, man. I would. It would be a, you know, like I say, 383. You know, but that's the other thing. So good point on that. So a lot of the trucks that I've seen, it's like, yeah, it's nice, but it needs an engine. Well, I get out there and what is nice really is something that somebody just basically gave up on a long time ago and started parting the thing out. You know, no engine in the vehicle. In other words, I can't even do anything with it. So If I have to go out and buy an engine, I can't machine what's already in the vehicle. That starts to create issues too. What I'm looking for is something that'll at least move under its own power if I need it to. And then if I need to do an engine swap, hell, just drag it to your shop. We'll knock it out there and make a day of it. But, it's little stuff like that we've been running into that it's just been a bit disheartening. But yeah, that's what I've been looking for. Floyd saying, my man with my favorite truck ever, the 454 SS, saying, guess what I found Labor Day weekend about 3 miles from my house? A very nice red on red 93 454 SS truck with 104,000 miles. Been in the guy's garage for the past 20 years. I bet it'll be in your garage here in about the next 20 minutes. Let's see. Good find though, man. That's awesome. Mopar fam saying, I need your thoughts on nitro setup for a 370 NA setup. You need my thoughts on a nitrous. Okay, well, it's awesome. I love me some nitrous. If you're talking about a 3.7, I don't know, 370, are we talking about a 6.2, or what are you talking about here? But anyway, what are my thoughts on it? Go to Nitrous Outlet, get you a controller. Make sure that when you hit the spray, you've got a window switch. Make sure you've got wide open throttle switch. Make sure it's a progressive style kit if possible. Do not go cheap on nitrous ever. It's the same basic principle with any engine, and especially the modern stuff. You got to remember that the stuff today is just making a lot more power than cars did back in the day, and metallurgy hasn't really changed all that much. You got to take that into consideration. So keep the shot down at least a little bit. Get started with about 75 shot and then move up from there and make sure it's a wet kit. Luke saying a real barn find cars at General Lee. That would be amazing for somebody that's into the General Lee. Let's see. Dr. Diss, then people wonder why it doesn't sell. Exactly, and that's the other thing. These things end up sitting around forever. People wonder why it doesn't sell, and then they get pissed when they have to lower their price. Or they get pissed when people like me show up and go, man, I'm sorry, I just can't see myself spending that kind of money that you're asking for it. Well, why not? They're going for a lot more on it. But no, they're not. They're not going for a lot more. Nobody's getting these types of numbers. But again, I just don't like the back and forth at all. It drives me absolutely bananas. But again, I've got to go out and say, look, you don't want lowball. You don't want me to insult you, but you're going to come out with a price that's absolutely ludicrous, and you're going to insult me before I even get the opportunity to insult you. Who's at fault here? I mean, am I at fault for offering up a price that I'll pay, or is the seller at fault for offering up such a high price and then threatening to get upset if I lowball? It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. The market will tell you what it's worth. Let's see. Floyd saying, I had to stop and he had to stop and see if he could sell it. Unbelievably, he said yes, so he made a deal on it. I figured as much. I think it would make a cool tow truck for the white 92 454 SS Hot Rod. Hell yeah, it will. That's awesome, man. Congratulations on that. CJ's checking in saying, good evening. What's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Hey, Posner's in. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. It's got an awesome question. What do you think of the Hellraiser 317 pulley with a claimed no tune needed? I think that is a load of horse shit. And anybody that tells you that that pulley does not need a tune, look, man, I'll just say this. Hand to God here. If that car is at altitude, it doesn't need a tune. I'll just go out there and say it that much. And what I mean by at altitude is if you live in Colorado and you put that pulley on your car, you will basically go from making about 8 or 9 PSI to about maybe 10 PSI realistically, maybe. But the reality is that there's no amount of extra boost in a Hellcat that will allow you to not get a tune. I mean, it's just, it doesn't work like that. At air charges that are within the scope of what that car can manage, yeah, you're not going to go outside of those air charge timing tables. But what I'm getting at is that you have to understand that if, let's say it picks up a pound of boost, you're basically DA correcting the car to the tune of about 2,500 feet. So by saying that, yeah, you're still going to be within the noise on your timing tables, but what it is not taken into account is catalytic converter overtemp protection. And what that translates into is this. When your Hellcat goes into cat overtemp at wide open throttle going down the quarter mile, you will go from a commanded AFR, which is what most people are used to working with, which is air fuel ratio. You will go from a commanded air fuel ratio of 12.7 and change, but right at 12.7, and yes, it's lean, but that's okay. It's only lean by conventional wisdom. You'll go from 12.7 all the way down to 10.5. Now, if you are already at, and your injector duty cycle, by the way, can go from 75 to 80% to 92, 93, 95%. If you start tipping into that 97, 99%, you're maxing out your injectors on your no tune setup. Very bad idea to throw that kind of advice out there into the world. My suggestion is anytime you put a different pulley on the car, you absolutely have to put a tune on it. No question about it. And I would say you would absolutely have to put a different set of injectors in it along with the tune. I don't care if it's a used set of Red Eye or Hellcat injectors at that point. I'd prefer not to see those injectors. I would much rather see something along the lines of a, like I said, an FIC 650s, something along those lines. But anything other than your stock injectors, because I am here to tell you, it is so easy to max out your stock injectors on a stock tune, and that's how these cars end up getting hurt. Super low DAs, go into cat overtemp, spike the injector duty cycle, and that can create a problem. Just saying. So I not trying to say that the sky is falling here, but in my personal opinion, that's the stupidest shit I've ever seen anybody post up on a part. So Posner, my bro, please don't get it and not put a tune on it. I just don't want to see. And this is the worst time of year to be advertising something like that, as we're coming into the low DA time of the year. I know it sounds tempting, brother. Just don't take the bait. Please don't take the bait on a no tune, because you can absolutely pop your engine on something like that. Let's see. Dr. Diz saying, I'm down, drag it over on my comment about doing an engine swap at his shop. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And CJ's asking, how's the old Dodge pickup doing? The only old Dodge pickup I have is my current work truck, and she is doing fine. Dr. Div saying on the nitrous comment, I've had good luck with the Nitrous Express kit also, as long as it's not over 150 shot. Yeah, there's some good progressive shots out there, but or progressive kits, I should say, out there. But I try not to. Here's my only advice with nitrous. This is my ongoing advice: is just don't go cheap. Don't go cheap. If there's any advice anybody will ever take from me, it's don't go cheap on a nitrous kit. I've seen too many people have too many problems. And learn nitrous system protocol. Learn how to drive a car on nitrous. Learn how to the proper care and feeding of your nitrous system. Always purge your system before you shut the car off, before you disarm the system. Unplug your bottle heaters. Do everything that you need to do to basically disarm the entire system, so that you don't have some bizarre catastrophic thing happen. Believe me, it happens all the time. Just know what you're doing and get good advice from people that have owned these kits and have worked with them or tuned with them before. It'll save you an engine. Floyd saying, you hit the nail on the head. Dude only put 5,000 miles on it in the last 20 years. Nice, and everything works on the old truck. Too cool. It used to belong to my ex-brother-in-law's sister. Small world. Oh, very cool. Sam Grable's got the two arms up. I like it. With the monies. Appreciate it. Shawnee's saying, are the stock idler and tensioner pulleys on a Hellcat somewhat suspect? Maybe talk a little bit about what you changed and if you would do it again. Well, yeah, I changed out the idlers and the tensioner pulley on my Hellcat. They're not really suspect. They're actually pretty durable pieces, but they weigh a ton. I forget the total weight savings, but I think it was 3 or 4 pounds that you ended up saving by going with the TBV pulleys. And the reason why I did it, number one, is I just didn't like the look of the big heavy steel pulleys on the front of my car. And two, upon further inspection, you know, those things have got to turn up to about, with the stock pulley ratio anyway, I think it's like 12,000 RPM, something like that, 13,000 RPM. You know, I figured if it's a lot lighter, it would at least take some rotating reciprocation, you know, whatever, off the front of my engine. And, you know, did I get any gain? Well, actually, yeah, kind of. Roughly 300ths in the quarter mile, which has made the difference between the car running a 1060 and a 1050. So there's that, I guess. But main thing on that is just chase your threads with brake clean, because if you don't, you are going to be trying to, you're going to be torquing that thing into a bracket that it's basically like turning it into just, you know, old plastic. You know, the thread lock that Dodge uses is crazy. So anyway, hit it with some brake clean, run the threads through, you know, run your bolt through 3 or 4 times just to clean out the threads. You'll be in good shape. You're going to have to treat it like you're cutting threads though, because you're actually cutting that thread locker out of there. But once you do that, you're good to go. But they're great pulleys though. In fact, now mine was not probably the first set to ever get them, but after my set of pulleys, they're using all 18,000 RPM pulleys. And it worked great. I like them. Let's see. CJ saying, I watched 86 Faces video about why is supercharging a V6 Challenger is cheaper than buying. Hang on. An RT with a 5.7 D8, while the 5.7 D8 is such a weak engine. Yeah, well, you know, to each his own, man. I can't really comment on that because, again, I don't really have a dog in that fight. You know, feel free to mod whatever you want, believe in whatever you want to believe in, and if it plays truth in your life, then keep it rolling. Michael Mark saying, I drive a 5.7 Challenger, and my next upgrade will be headers. Very good call. Is ceramic coating or wrapped better? Ceramic coating is better. I've read the coating only lasts 2 to 3 years. It depends on how it's interfering with other things underneath the car. But get a good set of headers. I mean, you buy a shitty set of headers, you're going to get shitty coating. Get a set of Cook's headers, you'll be in good shape. Spend the extra money and get a quality part whenever you're working on anything. Good enough is not good enough. Good enough is how you cry twice. And what I mean by that is, spend the extra money once, so cry once, don't cry twice. If you have to buy the same part twice, that is a nightmare. And I've learned a long time ago, I just don't go cheap with anything anymore because I can't afford to go cheap anymore, if that makes any sense. Dr. Div's asking, how hard are those Hellraiser pulleys to install? Got a customer asking for one. Done a few clutch style, but not the Hellraiser. It's the same as the stock pulley. It's made by the same company. It's the same as if you're swapping out one beat up stock pulley for another, if that even exists. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Not hard at all. All things considered. A little bit more of a pain in the ass than a regular Metco, but not a big deal. Sam is saying, I started my truck this morning, a bunch of white smoke. It cleared up, but I was a bit pissed. That's pretty common if you're not running a catch can. On any of these modern engines, by the way, it's not just the Mopars, it's all of them. Anyway, the pollution control system in these things is pretty aggressive, and the issue that you run into, especially if you start the vehicle and it runs for a short amount of time and then you kill it, and then start it again, say within 30 minutes or so. That's typically when you get the biggest shot. But anyway, what it is you've got oil that's getting into your intake manifold, and as the engine's running, you'll get this light mist that will coat the runners. And as the truck sits, that light mist will kind of beat up a little bit and drip down on top of the intake valves. All engines, especially modern engines, will pool oil on the intake valve. You got to fire it up and you get that initial puff of white smoke. Probably not valve guides. More than likely, that's what you're running into. Sean E, hey, thank you very much. Saying thanks for the advice on the quarter. I've managed a 1063 at 131 plus. I'm enjoying seeing your car as a test bed for my future plans. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Your car is screaming. Yeah, no, so far, mine's been doing great. I'm loving the hell out of my Hellcat, and glad to see and sharing with your experience. I know we talk on the phone quite a bit, and love hearing about your successes, and I love the back and forth play with yours against mine. I think it's a lot of fun. So definitely keep it up, and I'm looking forward to seeing how your vehicle progresses, and can't wait to see it at the track day. I think it's going to be awesome. Sam Grable saying, I like the sound of a turbo. But again, thank you, Sean. I do appreciate that very much, man. Thank you for being part of the show, man. I do truly appreciate it. Luke Rich is saying, I saw a 49 Ford F1 with the flathead V8 been sitting outside for many years, and the owner wanted $1,000 for it. Man, it's only worth it if you've got access to an aftermarket frame. More than likely, that frame is probably shot if he hasn't been taking care of it. And that's another thing. Man, how many of these vehicles I've seen that have just been allowed to sit and rot. And that's the other thing. I hate to say this, but if you've got a car that's sitting at the house and it's just being allowed to sit there and rot, and you've got some sentimental value attached to it that will not allow you to get rid of it, rethink your way of thinking. There's a lot of guys out there that would love to get their hands on that thing, that would give it all the love and respect that you either can't or won't give to it. There is a Nova literally right down the street from where I live, and I've got to drive past this car every single day on my way to work. It's like a 71 Nova, and it is just sitting there rotting. And the guy, I haven't gone by to even ask him. Part of it is I don't really know if I have the balls to just go knock on some guy's door and say, hey, you want to sell your car? It's a little bit cheesy. I'd rather them offer it up for sale first. But the other thing is that after looking at the car, just as I'm passing this thing by, and it's far enough away where, I can't get a close look, but I can get close enough of a look, if you know what I mean. That car would cost so much just to get back into being a structurally sound contraption in and of itself that it might not even be worth it long term. So yeah, I know what you mean when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just one of those deals where it's so difficult when you see stuff like that and nobody wants to sell them. But anyway, Dr. just saying, on the tuning statement, I've had hell with 6.4s going into cat overtemp and killing the command AFR. That and catalyst model under torque model. Yeah, I know. We talked about that a little bit. Some weird stuff that you see with some of the tunes from other shops, man, and I still can't believe that was the thing that they had changed in there. It's absolutely unnecessary, really, but I don't even know what to say, man. It blows my mind. But yeah, cat overtemp, wiping that out. I've done a few things with cat overtemp just to mitigate it a little bit, but I am still running catalytic converters, so I want there to be some catalytic converter overtemp protection, but I think the richest I'm commanding with my COT is like 12.0. So I'm really not doing a lot there. Hey, Mark McClarkson. Everybody say what's up. Rusty Box saying, let's see, hang on. Hey, Brian, it's my new name to help grow the channel now that the stable is growing. Hope all is well in Houston, brother. Hope everything is going well up north, my friend. Go check out Rusty Box. He's in the process of putting an old Fox body together, so check him out. It's good stuff for sure. Sam Grable saying easy way to avoid cat overtemp is to lose it. Well, you've got to take it out of the temp. You can't just remove the cats to get out of cat overtemp. It's something that's in the tune, but yeah, you can disable it in the tune, but you also don't want to break your cats either. Dr. Div saying absolutely don't go cheap on nitrous. Use a damn controller, bottle heater, and purge. Consistency is the key. It is, and the other thing too is, look, they're not maintenance free. You've got to change out your solenoids every single year. You've got to inspect that thing for just functionability. You've got to make sure that everything is working properly. The car's got to be data logged often enough to where you know what to expect. in terms of exhaust gas temperature. If that's something that you're monitoring, you need to be inspecting your plugs. You've got to be looking at fuel quality as an issue. You've got to make sure you're running the right spark plugs. You've got to do, everything is so overwhelmingly important when you start running nitrous oxide. And guys just think that, it's funny, guys have a tendency of thinking that you can just, I don't know, it's like playing a video game with these parts, and, you know, throwing nitrous on the car is just like, you know, clicking a box in Forza or whatever. It doesn't work like that. So, and it's real money you got to spend if you blow one of these things up. Slash checking in. Damn, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that very much, man. Didn't have a question to go with it, but thank you so much for the contribution to the cause, man. I truly appreciate that very much, man. Damn, thank you. Let's see. But man, thank you so much. David's asking, I have a Force 392 Challenger with a Pro Charger running 10 PSI of boost. A lot of guys are running screens instead of filters at the drag strip and gaining extra boost. Is it safe without a tune? Well, let's take a look at that. I got to dissect that question a little bit. First of all, is it safe without a tune? You're asking me if is it safe to run the screen without a tune revision to compensate for the higher airflow? Typically, yes. You don't have to get a tune. It will be safe because there should be enough in the provision of the tune to account for any extra airflow due to density altitude variations. That being said, run a screen only at your own risk. There are a lot of reasons why you would still want to run that filter at the drag strip. A lot of it has to do with how are you doing your burnout? Are you there on a track day? Or are you there on a track rental, a track day where you got everybody that's, you know, making passes ahead of you, they're doing burnouts, you're consuming tire smoke into the engine if you're not running a filter. There's a lot more to it than just that. You can damage the impeller if something does bounce into there and gets in there. Dust, things like that get kicked up in the pit area when you're running back and forth from the pit to the staging lanes. Not 100% smart to do that, but I see a lot of guys do it, and their feeling is that the risk is there's some reward associated with the risk. That's a long story, right? You're only at 10 pounds of boost. If you pick up any boost, that means that the filter that came with your kit was garbage. Just get a better filter and you'll be in better shape. And I highly doubt that at 10 pounds of boost, you're gonna pick up anything. Let me give you an example. Hellcats on the dyno. Hellcat typically makes around 10 to 11 pounds of boost. Oddly enough, this little girl makes just 10 pounds of boost. She's a little bit low on boost. Still kicks ass at the track. Isn't that funny? Anyway, Hellcat airbox, Hellcat filter, make a pull. Hellcat airbox, no filter, make a pull. Zero difference between one and the other. So I doubt very seriously that you would see much of a difference by pulling the filter. If it's a street car, you're not going to pick up anything. And again, at that boost level, you're not going to see any gain whatsoever. Slash is saying, be happy tonight. Brother, I appreciate that so very much, man. Thank you so much. I do truly appreciate it, and definitely always bringing positive vibes to the world through my YouTube. So thank you very much for being a part of that journey with me, brother. Let's see. Luke Ridge saying, I thought about buying that truck when the owner said $1,000. Said, hell no, you're crazy. I'm leaving. $1,000, you might not be too far off the mark, but again, it's everything you've got to do to that thing. You're basically just buying somebody's yard art at that point. Dr. Div saying, oh yeah, I got my block back from the machine shop tomorrow. Can't wait. Time to go fast. Went ahead and had it decked and line board. Very nice. Can't wait to see how she does, brother. Let's see. Oh, YouTube channel, Reeves Restorations. He's CJ Colvin's talking about the F100 Crown Vic swap. It's kind of a popular thing that guys have been doing. Is taking older F100s and putting them onto Crown Vic chassis, and from there you can, go Coyote swap and all this other stuff. It's pretty good. If you've got the room and the time to invest in it, it's a nice swap. But definitely something pretty sweet to check out if you ever get a chance to see some of that. I know that Hot Rod Garage did one of those as well. Let's see. Machine is asking, you seen Gas Monkey's 1970s Challenger barn find Crazy Steel? No, I don't watch that show too much. Shawnee's saying, if a Hellcat is very cool, is it possible to avoid cat overtemp in the quarter mile? Probably not. It seems like my mile an hour went up and down randomly a bit. You will delay the cat overtemp, but you won't necessarily do away with the cat overtemp. However, that being said, if the car is cooled down and the temperatures are low, chances are when the car goes into cat overtemp, it will be right before you go through the traps. It'll just start to register into cat overtemp, and then it'll go through the traps. That being said, my car, depending on if I hot lap it, I can actually get it to go into cat overtemp at about the 4-5 shift. So I can actually force mine in a little bit early if I hot lap it. And the mile an hour will come down just a little bit, but the ET typically isn't that much affected. Let's see. Speed Freak's asking, how are the Jeep SRTs compared to a 392 Charger or Challenger in the quarter mile? They're about a second off-ish. I can tell you that a stock Trackhawk and a tuned 392 will run about the same, 11.6 to 11.8 in the heat. So if that gives you any idea. I think most of the Trackhawks with the 392 are like 13.2, 13.4. Just it kind of depends on where you live. And a good running Scat Pack on a tire is going to come in, 12.4, 12.6. So almost a second, give or take. Sam Grable saying, I have a 5.9 diesel with 290,000 miles. Man, it's just barely getting broken in. Doc Div's hanging out with CJ, talking about beating up on his 5.7. Talking about it would kill a V6 with boost. Yeah, probably. Your truck kill a lot of things with boost. Edward's checking in saying, what's up, brother? Any idea where we can get a wide body kit for earlier Challengers? Also, I have a P40 code on my 2015 Hellcat. What would that be? P040, I think. I have to check. I think that's Bank 1 Lean. Doc Diff, if you're on, Google that real quick. A P040, I want to say, is a Bank 1 Lean code. I think. God, it's been a while since I even had to mess with a P040. But as far as a wide body kit, not sure, man. Not sure about the wide body kits. But what can cause an 040? If it is the O2 code that I'm thinking of, it could be a bad O2. It could be a sticking injector. I would start with an O2 and go from there. Typically, that would be the only things I can think of. I just can't look them up right now. Let's see. White Knuckle is saying, hey, B, what up, brother? When you tune the trans, do the parameters apply to all the drive modes, or are they mode specific? They are all mode specific. So you got to go in and change each and every mode individually. You have 5 tables per mode, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have got normal, performance. Basically, it goes normal. Let's see, normal, performance. There's another performance one in there. Track, cruise. There are several that are in there, not including the 4x4 stuff and valet mode and red key, black key, all that kind of stuff. But no, you do have to change each one individually. For the Hellcats, for the trucks, technically, you only have to change the normal, although I'm obsessive compulsive and I change all of the drive modes just because that's what I do. Let's see. CJ saying, in reality though, the 5.7 V8 is a great engine with a few bolt-ons like a ported 392 manifold, long tube headers, and a cam and a tune will get 5.7 Hemi V8 over 450 horsepower, but it will at least get it in a respectable range. But don't forget your two-step or your window switch for those short runner valves if you do go a 6.4 intake. Sam Grable saying, I have a 5.9 diesel and it's probably not that because it doesn't have an EGR. Let's just say something else fell off, so I'm not sure what caused the white smoke. It did for about 2 minutes. Oh, in that case, yeah. Okay, well, check the turbo bearings. The bearings in the turbo can leak, and that can also cause white smoke. Pretty common on some of those trucks. Rusty's saying, thanks for the shout out. Edward, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Got a contribution to the cause over here, man. I do appreciate that very much, man. Thank you, Edward. Appreciate it, brother. Mr. High Hemi saying, any experience with a Gen 3 Holley Sniper? I need more air on my latest NA426 build. No, but I can tell you this. I'm very interested in that because it is the only intake that anybody has started to make that will allow these things to breathe on the big end. I'm going to be working with Alex on something hopefully here soon. I would like to get my hands on one, and I would really like to put a cam together that would work with that intake manifold. But there's a catch. It's going to involve, the question that I have is how high can I spin the 6.4? And honestly, here's where my enthusiasm kind of butts heads with reality. I really want to try a build on that 6.4, but I think that a 426 would work better with that intake manifold because I'll be able to keep the RPM low, keep the velocity higher through the intake manifold, and I think that's really where that thing would shine. But I'm still convinced that a 392, or I'm sorry, a 426, because it would already have forged internals, spin that thing to about 72, 7,300 RPM. That would be the sweet spot for that thing. You'd be talking deep 500 numbers, maybe even a little bit over 6, and would actually be able to have a little bit of torque down low and have just be a riot up on the big end. But again, Edward, thank you very much. Shawnee, thank you very much. Saying, almost forgot, all my super chats must go to tint. I know it, right? Man, what? You don't like the fishbowl look? Actually, this thing does need some tinted windows pretty badly. But thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. See. Oh, Rusty Box saying, I got my new skinnies on my front of the car. Now I am shopping for my first set of 2610 slicks. Rookie advice, best bang for the buck, Hoosiers, man. Go with the Hoosiers. It's my favorite. Mickey Thompson's good too, but typically I like the way Hoosiers wear very well, by the way. But yeah, 26 by 10s will be perfect for you. We used to run the original Bisply ET Streets 261050s on our Fox bodies and had a lot of good luck with those. CJ Colvins is saying, I heard back in the 60s Dodge was going to make a 426 dual overhead cam 32 valve Hemi that makes well over 900 horsepower to take on Ford's SOHC. Actually, it wasn't going to make well over 900 horsepower. That engine would probably be around 750-ish horsepower. But yes, in fact, I think it was something 90. Something code, something 90. Anyway, I think there's a 90 in there. I can't remember. Anyway, but to give you an idea, no, it was. And other manufacturers that had engines like that, Buick had one that they were working on, 4-valve Hemi as well. So a lot of folks were working on that type of architecture back then. Shawnee's saying it worked with Super Chats towards the 309 gears, so I figured I'd try from the windows now. I appreciate that, brother. Dr. Niff saying, I've run a turbo screen for 1.5 years now, 30,000 miles, but I don't see dirt roads, stuff like that, and it's pretty concealed where it's at. Pick up a bug from time to time. Yeah, I mean, you know, the small stuff I'm not too concerned with, but it's the cumulative effect over time just with the dust and debris that can get in there. If you're not on dusty roads, that's great, but I had a weird kind of a one-off experience with some dust and dirt with my car. I was basically validating a tune on my car, and like if this is the minivan, I was here, we're going down the road and they're doing a lot of construction out here. The minivan hit a patch where the trucks had been exiting the work zone, and it just like spy hunter style threw up dust. And where I was sitting, there was nowhere I could go, and I ran all the way straight through it. Made me really glad that I had my factory filter in the car, and I just swapped out the filter with the regular Mala filter, and for 26 bucks on Amazon, the car went 1054 at 130 miles an hour on a $26 filter. How's that? Dr. is saying P0040 O2 sensor signal swapped. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Sounds like an O2 problem to me. Slash is saying, I will be parking my Scat Pack in the garage for the winter, probably in November. Can I remove my computer and send it to Pikes Performance and get it tuned? No, unfortunately, you cannot bench tune these computers. The car has to be there to have the OBD2, but that's the only way to interface with the computer, because you have to have on-off cycles with that computer to make the tunes actually work. So unfortunately, no, the vehicle would have to be present to be tuned. Dr. is saying O2 sensor signal swap bank 1, bank 2. That's just weird. I don't know what would cause that. Let's see. CJ's just talking about the 5.7 or V6 with the rips. I mean, look, there's the old 6-gun club, 6-shooter Mustang guys, all that stuff. There's a lot of guys that get into the six cylinders. I mean, that's what you're into, man. I mean, more power to you. There's a lot of guys that are into stuff that I'm really not into. But who am I to judge, right? So I say go for it, man. If you're into 6 cylinders, throw a supercharger on it, throw some nitrous at it, and go see what you can whoop up on. It's actually a lot of fun to do that. Edward's saying, I only have $98.01 left in my account. I'll try helping out when I can. Awesome advice. Keep it coming. Brother, I appreciate that. You don't have to do anything. If you're learning, I do appreciate that. And if you feel compelled, I ain't going to stop you, but don't do it because you think you have to. I appreciate you hanging out and just hanging out with me, brother. So don't feel like you ever have to. Sam Grable saying 290K. Yeah, man, diesel at 290,000 miles. It's nothing. Easy. CJ's asking, can you take the 6.1 Hemi V8 and make it to a 426? Yes, you can. Dr. Dude saying, I'd love to test one of those Holley Sniper intakes, but would have to pay for the thing and underperform my current. I hate to pay for it and have it underperform the intake. And my intake was very good. All range RPM gain and feel, and that's kind of where I'm at with that, to be honest with you. Again, okay, so the high-rise stuff versus stock. This goes back for you Fox Body guys. Mark will get this. So GT40 intake versus Edelbrock intakes back in the day. GT40 or Cobra intakes would just up to 4,700 RPM would walk all over the aftermarket intakes. But after that, the aftermarket intakes would walk away. We're talking about the Holley intake, any of the Edelbrock, Victor intakes, whatever the case. Same goes here. That intake is going to do great under boost, and it's going to do really well under, high RPM, high load scenarios. But where it's going to fail is going to be under partial throttle driving conditions and tip-in torque and things like that. It's just not going to be there. Now, if you're building a race engine and you're wanting to drag power as high as you can, yeah, that intake is going to do great, and it won't be a restriction at higher boost levels, basically at higher demand air situations. But at the same time, you've also got to remember that you've got a reciprocating mass that is only fit to spin to a certain RPM. Personally, I don't like dragging these things past 6,500 RPM. Others do, and others have also blown their engines up, broken pistons, slung a rod, whatever the case is, because of it. So if you've got a built bottom end, spin it to the sky, provided you got the right valve springs. But if you don't, stick with the stock, because if it's a street car and you're doing, you know, off throttle driving, that's really where the difference is going to lie. So stock, probably better to about 47 to 5,000 RPM with the one you've got set up, you know, somewhere in that range. And then after that, I would expect the high rise to start to outperform it. But again, to really get a big gain, you're going to have to stretch that RPM out to at least 66, 6,700 RPM. And, you know, obviously shift points would have to be adjusted accordingly. But make sure you've got everything that's there that can spin that high to begin with. Actually, 5.7s are pretty good about dealing with RPM though. So 6.4, not so much. CJ's asking, might be a stupid question, what is your favorite monster truck? I used to like the one, I haven't really watched it lately. I used to like the guy that had the Escalade. I thought that one was pretty cool. Haven't watched it in a while, so my opinions of that are going to be dated. Also like the one that looked like a giant dog. I thought that was pretty cool. So, all-time favorite, probably Max Destruction. Was it Tom Mintz? Used to like watching him get out there and race all that thing. Let's see. MI saying, snag the aluminum elephant block and Thytec heads for the new 426 build. Very cool. You're going to love that combination, by the way. And I mean, you are going to love it. Let's see. Shawnee is saying, I'm modifying my old stock air filter, pulling the paper out and replacing it with a screen for track only filter, or am I insane to do that? I do have a brand new clean filter in it now. Man, you know, for what? Now, let me just ask you this. At your current boost level, it's already been proven that you won't really gain anything. That being said, there's nothing wrong with trying something new. I personally wouldn't, because I have not seen a gain, number one, on a dyno that would indicate that I was picking up any power. But really, more to the point, if you want something like that, just get a green filter. That's really all you've got to do. Green filters are kind of a neat compromise with these cars in that they don't really filter very well. I mean, they're really not a filter, although they kind of are in the biblical sense, I suppose, if you're being completely honest. It's not, though. It'll filter air, but it doesn't really filter like the stock filter. So I would say don't remove the filter as a whole, but get you a green filter, swap them back and forth, and that would be my best advice. Don't run your car without a filter. You've got too much of an investment going on here, and there's zero gain for more risk than it's really worth going with a no filter setup. That's just my opinion, though. Let's see. Sam Grable saying, I have an odd code, P0483 with no check engine lights. It's probably a permanent code, and you won't get a check engine light on permanent codes, only current codes. So it's just something that had come up in the past, and you still have it stored. Scout Speed's checking in saying, what up, B? What's up, man? Edward's checking in. My pleasure, man. Yeah, thank you again. I appreciate that a lot, dude. I truly do. It means a ton to me. Jeffrey the Enforcer checking in saying, what up, B? How's it going, man? It's going good. Rusty's saying, I trust you, brother. Hoosier it is. I think you're going to like the Hoosiers, man. They bite well. They last for seemingly ever. And at your power level, you can actually air them up a little bit higher, let her rip, and enjoy it. Just make sure you've got C-clip and eliminators on the rear end, brother. Yeah. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, if I try to manually shift my 8-speed at the track, will it hit the rev limiter, or can it shift at 62, 63? It will. You can shift it at 62. You've got to be kind of quick with it, but it's give it a shot and see what you think. But yeah, it's going to take a little bit of practice for you to actually hit the shifts properly. You're going to need to use your paddles to get the quickest shifts out of it. But just remember that under paddle shift, you're using the track the track protocol for line pressures and things like that. So it might be a little bit jerky, but yeah, give it a shout. You can run it out to 62 is your cutoff though with your paddle. So you're really only gonna realistically in practice pick up about 100 RPM if you nail it perfectly every single time. Floyd saying, I have had good luck with my MT ET Street R's. As you know, I am in love with my MT ET Street R's when we have good track prep. Dude, what has been up with the track, man? I've been having some chats with folks about that too, bro. So track prep for the track day, by the way. Get to some track day business. Before I forget, for everybody that has paid for their slot, you will be receiving a confirmation here very soon. For those of y'all that haven't, if you want in, I've probably already contacted you at this point. Slots are filling up quick, and I am not really going to be holding slots for anybody. If you want in, we got to jump on this stuff quick if you want in. But it's basically just going to be guidelines, things like that. I am going to be requesting radial prep for this track day. What does that mean? That means that it will be overly sticky. That is a good thing if you're on a radial. If you're running a bias ply, you're gonna need to air the tires up because it is going to be sticky. Not just a little sticky, it's gonna be real sticky, which is both a good and a bad thing. So just something to consider. Let's see. Davis checking in saying long tube or short tube headers. Depending on the fitment and depending on the application, I say long tube headers for partial throttle and tip-in torque. The shorties, there's some 1 7/8 shorties that are actually pretty good. JBA, I think, or no, Holley, Hooker released a set that I've heard are really good 1 7/8 shorties with a nice collector. So check those out as well, but I haven't seen those installed. You know, using the 6.4 or Hellcat manifolds is good, but they're heavy as hell. They're nice and quiet though, so they don't really piss off your knock sensors. That's another thing. If you decide you want to run headers, just know that in the tune, running headers, your knock sensor sensitivity is going to get jacked pretty high, or rather, it's going to get neutered pretty much, quite a bit, because there's a lot of extra noise. If you run headers and no tune, your knock sensors are going to go into straight up acid trip mode. Just know that coming into it. Let's see. James is asking, are there any Euro or JDM cars that interest you? I like the DSM stuff. So the Eclipse, I love that car. Huge fan of the Conquest / the Starion was another car that I just freaking loved. As far as anything else, I'm not really a huge fan of GTRs. Not big. Let me think about this for a minute. Integras are a lot of fun. Do like Integras. And then the CRX Civics. Big fan of those things. And kind of some quirky crap that I'm into when it comes to those cars. I'm not a huge, let's see, as far as Euro stuff goes, let me think about this. Well, GTI for sure. Any of the old Cosworth Fords are pretty awesome. And really any of the late 80s, early 90s hot hatch type cars, big fans of those. Love front wheel drive cars, by the way. That's something that kind of a, did you know type of thing. I freaking love front wheel drive stuff. I think it's awesome. So, but those are some of the cars that's like, right off the top of my head. That's really about it. I'm not really into the high end stuff. I like the older 3 Series BMWs. I've had an E63 AMG. Really like that car. So as far as Euro stuff, that's with the M156. Really like that car a lot. But stuff that I haven't owned that I'd love to get my hands on. Really more some of the little bit more of the quirky stuff is what I'm more into when it comes to those types of cars. And then of course Miatas, because I'm a sucker for Miatas anyway. Floyd's asking, is there no advantage to running a looser converter on these 8-speed tranny equipped cars? Never heard much talk of it compared to the LS engines in the GM world. There's not, there's not that much of a benefit to running a looser converter, because the converter in this car, or in the 392s for that matter, in practice, basically a 3,000 RPM stall. If you ever look at the data logs on these cars, the RPM will come up and it'll hang right at 3,000, and then it'll start bumping up from there. So, and that's at the launch, obviously. But the thing about these cars is that they've got so much gear multiplication that running any looser torque converter, you end up blowing through the converter really quickly and ends up lighting the tires up, even on lower powered cars. So I've driven 8 speeds with high stall converters, and they're okay, but I prefer to have something that is using the stock converter. If for no other reason also too, is they just seem to run smoother. Now granted, a looser converter, it'll make the shifts be a little bit softer, things like that, but or just not as perceptible, especially with NAG1 cars. NAG1 cars, typically you'll kill the torque converter clutch in first gear and in second gear. So you just kind of get this, kind of effect out of it. But a lot of times that's with cars with cams and things like that. But it's cool that you can put a looser converter and just go in and adjust all of your lockup and lock and unlock features with the converter right in the computer. It makes it kind of neat. Let's see. Oh, Smoking 05 saying, Sam, 0483 code is clutch fan code. Check the connector, fan is probably going bad. Probably a high resistance code on that. So you're right, it probably is going bad. Slash is saying, any positive in just swapping my Scat Pack air filter for the Hellcat, not changing out the boxes yet? Absolutely. So to give you, good question. I'm glad you asked. So the model filter for the Hellcat, the stock Mopar filter is made by Mala. And what the cool thing is that, and I don't have the box here, damn it. Anyway, I did a video on this, and so the Hellcat filter flows about 1100 CFM when it's clean. When it's dirty, it flows 740 CFM, basically. The filter for the 392s and the 57s, basically the same filter. Well, it is the same filter. Different part number, not originally made by Mala, although they do make one. That element from Mopar only flows 750 CFM when it's completely clean, and it drops down to something stupid like 500. It's on the video. It's like 500 or 400 CFM. Anyway, it's a lower number when it's dirty. Basically, the Hellcat air filter will flow what your stock filter flows when it's completely clean. The Hellcat will flow that when it's dirty. The Mala does not make the original, it's not the OEM for the filter. I believe it's actually Wix that makes that filter. So the Mala replacement might have a different element in it. So if you get that filter, it might be a little bit better than the actual factory replacement, but it doesn't cost any more to get the Hellcat filter, and it's just a better filter all the way around. Order it off of Amazon, you'll pay $32 shipped to your door at the most. Order up a few of them, and they're good for 3 or 4 oil changes if you do oil changes like I do about every 2,000 miles. Anyway, they're a solid, robust piece, and I 100% recommend them for everybody, with or without a Hellcat airbox. Let's see. Somebody just, this is CJ Coleman, added a cam to his ProCharge 5.7 in his 2014 all-wheel drive RT Charger, along with 392 Hemi Shorty headers, and it made over 600 horsepower at the crank. Very cool. I like it. Sam's saying, yeah, I bought my truck from a guy that used it to move livestock. It was also a farm and landscaping rig, so it was probably 260,000 hard miles when I got it. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a mall cruiser if that's the case. Check that turbo, because those turbos, when they start going out, that thing can absolutely leave you stranded. It's not uncommon. If it hasn't already had a rebuilt turbo installed on it, do the exchange thing where you send yours off, they give you a remanufactured one, and you'll be in good shape. So I'd probably look at that to get swapped out very soon. Dr. Dude saying, I do agree with the filter comments. I can't find one with the placement of the turbo. When the engine goes in, I'll figure it out and pull it at the track. Very good. Sam Grable saying, Smoking 05, all that is brand new OEM parts, so the fan is not causing it. Interesting. Shawnee's asking, they are going to put down the VHT all day at the starting line? Yeah, they'll be keeping the track fairly well prepped. With all this running on radials and slicks, I don't think they're going to have too much work on their hands to keep that track nice and good, but we'll stay on top of it, and if it needs to get resprayed, we can just walk over there, hit it with the sprayer, let it sit for about 2 or 3 minutes to cure, and should be in good shape. Depending on the temperature, of course. But yeah, last year it was great, and the year before that, real good track prep. So yeah, I can't wait either. It's gonna be good. Dr. Div saying J-Roll 11 can't wait. We're gonna be turning it up a lot that day. I like it. Smoking at 5 saying Sam Grable could be the connector or wiring. Then make sure the connector is clean and check the wires with the meter if you can. Let's see, Doc Div saying, hoping it's nice and cool for a good DA. We are going to be getting some fast numbers. So let me give you an idea on that, guys. As far as how the track day has gone in the past, we have set national records at both of the track rentals, both last year and year before last. We do look to continue that tradition this year. Personally, I have driven 3 different cars to national records. We've had TBSS record broken, Ram 1500 record, 2 Ram 1500 records broke on the same day. Yeah, all kinds of secondary records have been broken. So yeah, we've either had cars get on a podium for a record or have broken records. So yeah, it's definitely, if it falls in line the same way we've had, it's going to be pretty good. We just need Mother Nature to cooperate. Fingers crossed on that. Should be good though. But if not, if things get weird, we will definitely be rescheduling. Let's see. CJ Colvin's hanging out with Dr. Div. Scat is saying, I know you asked this before, but you can run a ported 392 Hemi intake manifold with a 84 millimeter throttle body with no tune, right? That is 100% correct. Yes, you can. I asked because I installed the ported intake manifold and it runs awesome. Yes. Now get you an 84 millimeter throttle body and let her rip. Get a hold of Fastman. Let him know I sent you. He doesn't pay me or give me anything every time somebody shows up at his front doorstep asking for one of his parts. But I will tell you this, it just is fun seeing how many I can send over to him, because he does some great work. Parts work fantastic and flawless, and it is the only part that I recommend with my ported intake manifolds for the 392s. Shawnee's asking, what is the minimum I could do to my Hellcat to SAE correct the horsepower and basically make 707 or so at the wheels on a dyno jet? I'm thinking about it looks like a lower and reasonable 93 octane tune. Let me see. If you want to actually SAE correct the car, 285 pulley will get you just about there. Let's see, no cats, a true 10% lower, or a 285 upper will get you real close. And you're starting to creep into that area where, okay, so for me, there's kind of a golden rule with me and Hellcats, and it's another reason why I know that I don't really tell folks really what they want to hear, but sometimes it's better to tell folks what they need to hear. When it comes to what you can get away with on 93 octane, my personal opinion, as humble as it is, don't go above 707 horsepower to the rear wheels on these cars. Really, my number is 7 bills on these cars. And the reason for that you've got a very heavy vehicle with a positive displacement forced induction unit sitting on top of its engine. There is lots of load going through your car. Now you've got a saving grace. 309 gear pulls a lot of that load off of the engine on the launch. So there's at least that. But after that, you still have a pretty consistent load down the track. I would say that with a stock gear, I don't like seeing more than 700. And when you dyno correct for the 309, that number still applies. There's only so much wiggle room that you're going to have with 93 octane gasoline. You know, how much have I seen 93 octane manage? 750, 770? Sure. Okay, fine. But give me one kind of bad tank of gas and that's going to cause some problems. And the only way to keep it from causing problems is to make the NOx sensors still very sensitive, which will mean that it's going to be neutering your car because you will be going into false NOx sooner because you've just got more crap going on with that supercharger spinning faster. So I will say that if you want, throw a 285 on it or do the Innovators West lower, call it good at that point. Whatever it makes with a solid 93 octane tune, that's what it makes. Hallelujah, we're in good shape, and let her rip from there. Make sure that it's a tuner that is going to give you a conservative tune with that pulley. Don't go looking for final numbers. Look for results at the drag strip. The horsepower number is irrelevant when it comes to getting one of these cars down a drag strip. I've proven that with my 392. And I've proven it with this one because it's never been on a dyno, but I can promise you this car would be one of the lower horsepower reading cars on the dyno. Just tell that by looking at the data. But if you know what you're doing, you can get some good times out of it no matter what. CJ's saying he's not a big fan of imports. Be careful what you're calling an import, by the way, because, you know, you got a Hencho in Mexico engine over here with body by Canada. So the only thing that's made anywhere else is the transmission, and that's licensed from Germany. Just saying. So much stuff is outsourced anyway. It's kind of hard to call anything truly domestic anymore. Sam Grable saying it's odd that it's still got it now that I also had my ECU go out, the one that's no longer in production. Smoking at 5, I've looked into the code and it can be caused by a 5-volt short somewhere. Yeah, if that's it, you've definitely got, it's a 5-volt signal that it's picking up as being bad, so you definitely have a short somewhere in that system. Either in the connector itself, the plug, a relay, or somewhere, you've got a 5-volt source that is just, it's outside of a range. It's either zeroing out, which would mean it's clipped, or it's pegging, which means it's grounded. Steven's asking, how much horsepower do you think a ported intake and shorties would give a 5.7? Not a lot of content on it. Well, the ported intake depends on if it's a car or a truck, but the ported intake, it's going to depend on the condition of the intake. I've seen 8, 10, 12 horsepower come out of just cleaning up an intake manifold. Shorty headers, I've seen pick up, 8 horsepower. So all in, the combination as a whole, 12, 15-ish. It just depends on how bad the initial setup was. But the main thing is that you just pick up torque everywhere. So it's gains and overall gain in power throughout the RPM range. Most of the time, you're not going to see huge gains on the big end, mainly because the intake manifold itself won't allow for it. It just doesn't flow enough. And where it does flow well, the runners are long, so you have a higher velocity going through that thing than you would in, say, like an LS manifold. So it's kind of playing apples and oranges, but they'll typically pick up a pretty decent amount of torque with a set of shorties. 5.7s are terrible from the factory. But again, you got to remember that with a 5.7, if you're running shorties, you got to make some serious changes to your NOx sensor sensitivity, or like I say, they'll go into freak out mode. Let's see, Sam's talking about it might be the radio causing the short because my steering wheel control work oddly. That would be your clock possibly causing that. Sky Speed saying, nice. I have a 73 Roadrunner 340 Auto, ran when parked 10 years ago, no gas tank now. You'd probably not be interested in Omaha. If interested, email. I'll shoot you an email, man. Beat Vlad, got it. Saying not looking to get rich off of it though. Yeah, man, I'll tell you something. It's real frustrating when I would go out and look at some of these vehicles, and you know, the picture in the ad, I mean, it's like a glamour shot, right? I mean, it's just, they're not really showing you what's wrong with it. They're showing you what they think is right with it. And then you get there and it's some bombed out piece of crap. I mean, look, I get it. You know, people want to sell things. They want to paint it in the best light. But man, if I show up and you're telling me you've got pretzels and I show up and it's bear claws, man, I'm going to be in a bit of a problem. Pretty frame of mind, you know. So, and again, it's not saying that one's better than the other. It's just, you know, tell me exactly what I'm getting. Don't try to paint this thing in a better light than what it is. Let's see. Mark's checking out, saying off to sleep. More renovations tomorrow. Thanks for everything. Much appreciated. Glad I caught it. Good, man. Good seeing you on the show, brother. I like keeping up with that Mustang, man. That's awesome what you're doing with it. Cheers on that. Let's see. Smoking at 5 saying I bought my 05 brand new and the stock radio was glitchy from day one. I've never had it cause a problem though. 160,000 miles. I'm curious if this is normal. Every time I put my Challenger GT in sport mode, the transmission shifts really rough, even under low throttle. They will actually throw more line pressure at some of those tunes, so it's probably completely normal. Unless it's just like spine braking, then get that checked out. But no, it will shift more firm with throttle. Let's see. Sam saying I was smoking. CJ is saying 392 Hemi versus 5-liter Coyote. Which one will win? It depends on the race that they're running, but and the state of tune of both cars. It's going to be very close either way. Dr. Diff checking in saying, I'm hoping one of those records this year. Have a good night. I am out, man. Thank you so much, Doc. I appreciate it. And yes, we're hoping that you are too. Love setting records at those events, man. It's a lot of fun. I love seeing everybody having a good time and sharing in their success, or at least being able to watch their success, if nothing else. Smoking 05 still hanging out with Sam, talking about some diesel stuff. Looks like Sam saying I had a stock injector go out around 135,000 miles. Got you on that. Oh, CJ's talking about Auto Vlog, the 2015 F-150 making over 600 with a supercharger. Yep. There was a dealership out of Georgia that was actually remaking, if you want to call it that, the Lightnings. They were taking 5-liter trucks and putting superchargers on about 600 to 650 horsepower. Pretty sweet. Let's see. Sam saying the reason why I bought the truck, his truck saying he bought it because it was bone stock. I love it. Shawnee is checking out, saying, good night, everybody, got to go. Revlon looks ready to race. Are you going out again next couple of weeks? Any short-term goals? May or may not. I think the first short-term goal I've got is to clean the car. Second one is to clean up my garage a little bit, take care of some stuff around the house. So not really anything that I'm banking on short-term getting accomplished, but I would like to get a little bit more data on the car, but that's really about it. Not really trying to do anything with it just yet. The one thing that I have not done with the car is I haven't run it on 100 octane yet. I haven't added any race gas to it since the 309 gear and the trans tune. So may give that a shot this weekend. We're going to see how things shape up. We've been having some kind of crappy weather lately, but if the weather's decent and I get a little bit of free time on my hands, that will be the last thing that I check on the car. Just hoping for good track prep. That's the main thing. Let's see. Oh yeah, CJ saying it really makes me sad when he sees people letting cars rot like that. Yeah, it bums me out too, man. Scott's saying I bought my Cuda for a great price, but it needs a lot of work, man. And see and CJ's checking out. You have a good night too, brother. Slash is out 99. Thank y'all very much, man. I appreciate that, guys. Thank y'all so much. Slash, truly appreciate it, brother. It's tough when, you've got. Look, you get something that you get a really good deal on, but it needs so much work that you end up blowing way past the hobby aspect of it, and that project ends up owning you. And yours may not be in that shape, but I can tell you that some of the cars I've looked at, yeah, that's kind of how they would wind up. So let's see. Jean-Paul saying, hi, Brian, 2009 5.7 RT 6-speed, Magnuson supercharger, 8 pounds of boost, headers, drag pack, wheels like yours. Finally got my first 1180 at 118. Very nice, man. Congrats on that. Floyd's saying, hey, call me when you can. I will definitely give you a holler, brother, for sure. So basically, guys, I'm going to get back to the original point, and then I got to check out myself. Again, not saying sour grapes or whatever on trying to find another project or project vehicle, but the more that I looked into them, man, the more that it just kind of dawned on me that a lot of the vehicles that I was looking at would have to be so inexpensive that the cost would be irrelevant to the cost of the project itself. That's just the unfortunate reality of it. And when it comes time to actually start moving more towards that project, I think I'll have a little bit more done to the house at that point, and drive that narrative a little bit more when I'm in a position where here at the house I've got my carport, my other slab port, and all that other stuff. We can get rolling with that. But I think the reality is, in the meantime, if something does come up, I'm not going to let it pass me by, but I just won't be able to get on it immediately. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. I guess really my journey, the way emotionally it took me, was I was just so pissed that the sellers of some of these vehicles were basically throwing out cars that really should have been scrapped, and they did such a crappy job of trying to resurrect them, but then asked such a stupid amount of money for the car that it made doing business with that person, it made it creepy. It made talking to this person a little bit weird. So that's kind of where I'm at with all of that. But let me check in with some of you guys real quick before I bounce here. Carzilla saying, how much more do you like the Hellcat over the 392? That is a tough freaking question to answer, because I don't like it necessarily more than the 392. I like it in a different way than the 392, but I wouldn't trade my Hellcat for a Scat Pack. I'm just saying that they're both really fun and awesome cars. The Hellcat does things that the Scat Pack simply can't do, but the Scat Pack has got a leg up on the Challenger in a couple of ways. And walk with me on this. Scat Pack is better under partial throttle conditions that aren't like 3/4 throttle. You're not really trying to shower down on it too hard. But the Scat Pack is really nice under partial throttle conditions. It's a crisper car, and it's also better balanced, from a handling standpoint, if you want to get into that. Don't get me started on the handling thing. But just from being a little bit lighter, the electric power steering is kind of nice too. You can a little bit more adjustability, but it's not like the car is out there really trying to kill you. It's just a lot of fun to drive, and from your car is your buddy type of standpoint, from that point of view, the 392 is great. The Hellcat, on the other hand, is that kind of devil on your shoulder, which, that's always the more fun one to hang out with anyway, right? So I would say that, which one would I prefer, one or the other? Obviously, the Hellcat wins that argument. But I would love to have one of each, because I really like the 392 cars. but in a completely different direction than the Hellcat. Let's see. Sky Speed saying, you'll find one, buddy, just keep looking. Always, for sure. Driver J is saying 100% agree on the base cost and project cost versus priority and life expenses list. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's weird because technically speaking, I could write that cost off. But just because I can write the cost off of that vehicle and anything else that I do for it, for that matter, it still doesn't really, it doesn't walk in lockstep with the mission statement of what I wanted to do with that vehicle. So if that makes any sense. And really the mindset that I had was, if you were to get one of these vehicles, you know, a buddy of yours gives it to you, your brother, slides you one on the cheap, you got an aunt that hooks you up for, whatever reason. That's the kind of idea that I had, not really going out and shelling out full retail on a car that needs more work than it's worth. So that's really where I was going with that. But at that, guys, I'm going to bounce on this. Carzilla's got the thumbs up. Sky Speed's got the 3 thumbs up. Y'all have a fantastic night. Truly appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I look forward to seeing y'all on the next one. That is a wrap. Adios.